Hey everybody, Tim here with today's episode of Star Trek Voyager, Season 5, Episode 3, Extreme Risk. This was a pretty good episode. This is actually one of the earliest episodes I can remember as a kid watching, just for the orbital skydive scene, the very first scene. Like, I don't remember any of the actual material, just the skydive scene. Which in itself is actually a deleted scene from the movie Generations. That was supposed to be the opening with Kirk doing the orbital skydive and then landing, but they kind of cut it all out, and then they just had him walking onto the Enterprise B. And then we'll see this again in the 2009 Star Trek movie. But anyways, this is a good episode, and so Star Trek is always pretty good about like pushing the boundaries, pushing the limits, and bringing social points to light. In this one, it would be like self-mutilation, like cutting yourself and stuff like this, where we see B'Elanna, and she's basically self-harming herself to feel alive, because she just feels dead inside. And there's kind of the old phrase, like, I cut myself to know that I'm still alive, which is also a song lyric. Anyways, so most of this episode is about the Delta Flyer, which Tom Paris got the idea of in the last episode, and in this one they actually put it together, which I said in my last review, I love that ship. It's a bitchin' ship, and it was one of my favorites as a kid. We see B'Elanna fighting Cardassians, and she goes into the holodeck program and she takes off the safety protocols and she just fights Cardassians. So already you can kind of tell something's not quite what it seems. The Malons, who we've seen before, they were the ones that were dumping their waste in the void space. Basically, they make a comeback, and one of Voyager's probes are kind of stuck in this atmosphere that Voyager can't get to, and it's a race between the Malons building a ship and Voyager building the Delta Flyer to get down into it and get their probe back. So we see B'Elanna, and she's all cut and all bruised, and she uses the little skin graft to heal herself. And there's a really touching moment where B'Elanna goes to the mess hall and like talks to Neelix, and she's like, let's catch up. And Neelix is like, you want to catch up with me? And she's like, yeah. So he makes her some banana pancakes, and they kind of talk, and she takes like one bite, and she's like, okay, thanks, and leaves. And that's basically her reaching out, saying like, I need to talk to somebody, let's try you. And it still doesn't help her. She's still depressed, and she's still not feeling herself. Janeway comments on the race, how it's just an old-fashioned space race on who can build a ship first. The Malons end up doing it first, but the Delta Flyer ends up being better. So as they're building the Delta Flyer, they keep getting these hull fractures, and B'Elanna's like, here, I'm going to go see if I can find out what's going on. So she goes in the holodeck, takes the safety protocols off again, and this time she actually does get injured, and Chakotay rescues her, and there's a scary moment where Janeway basically tells the doctor to leave, and she's like, the doctor ran some tests, and you have broken bones, you have internal bleeding, you have this, you have that, and some of this is weeks, even months old, that you've been doing this. And so she basically relieves her of command, and it's that first kind of interaction where she's like, what's going on? And B'Elanna's like, nothing, I'm fine. And she doesn't fight back with Janeway, and Janeway's like, this is how I know something's wrong. So Chakotay has the next step in the intervention, basically is what it is, and he drags her into the program she's been running, and it's all of her Maquis like brethren being killed, which is something we found out about in Deep Space Nine, that the Maquis were wiped out. And ever since then, B'Elanna just feels dead inside. Like, she even says, like, she doesn't really care about Tom anymore either. And so she basically has this realization to snap herself out of it. So she does go with the away team on the Delta Flyer, and it's a kind of a bitchin' scene where she like sets up this quick force field for the hull fractures. They do get the probe, and they win, and they go back. And I wouldn't say everything's well that ends well, and B'Elanna's nowhere near like back to normal, but she does take that first step in this episode, where this is one of those moments where Voyager does kind of annoy me a little bit, where I would have loved to see this actually be a story arc. Like the very next episode, she's basically back to normal. I want to see that ongoing arc, kind of like they did in Deep Space Nine with Nog, and where like after he was injured in battle, he was not just back to himself. Like, it was a long story arc about him coming out of it with Vic Fontaine. That's what I wanted for B'Elanna, but instead it's kind of the next episode she bounces back. Still, I think for one episode, this was a great episode, and I thought they did a really good job of showing the self-harm and asking for help. I think they did a great job. So for those who have seen this episode, what did you guys think? Thank you guys for everything, and I will see you guys next time for In the Flesh.